Perfect. Let's get going. Hey everyone, my name is Mueez. So I'm here from Toronto. Actually, long story. Last night, me and Ali were on the way here from Toronto, and our car actually flipped in the blizzard, and somehow we survived. And the police helped us out, and we came out of the car, and yeah, we're unscathed. Like, I just my knuckles are just a bit messed up from trying to break the windshield, but we survived. We survived. Yeah. So
Yeah.
hopefully this is valuable to you guys because I almost lost my life.
Risked his life for it.
So um, essentially, I'm going to be talking about how to automate lead list building plus cold email sequencing using Clay and Instantly. So you guys heard a lot about Clay. Instantly is basically an automation for cold email. So just a tool that you can completely automate cold email sending with. And to actually how to get revenue in the door, because there's a lot of stuff that you can do with Clay. It's pretty abstract. You can build a lot of stuff, but I want you guys to make money as well. So essentially, that's going to show you how to do this. So about Pulsetter, so I run a cold email lead generation agency. We've built Clay over 100 Clay-powered workflows. We've served over 40 B2B industries. We've helped companies land meetings with decision makers at DHL, Ryder, Samsung, Apple, UPS, and Emirates. And these are all powered by Clay-based workflows. And one thing I will tell you is a lot of people will tell you about intent signals and stuff, but at the end of the day, it just comes out of the demand of the market. So it just comes down to your offer. There isn't a magic personalization play that you can make to get these deals in the door. It just comes down to what you're offering and the sense of product market fit that you have when you're actually sending out cold outreach to your customers. But in terms of traditional lead list building, I'm sure, have you guys ever, any of you tried building any lead lists? Like if you're scraping a bunch of companies, like trying to find a list of IT companies or trying to reach out to someone, just a raise of hands who's tried scraping a lead list before? Okay, perfect. So essentially what we noticed a big bottleneck with people with traditional lead list scraping is that, let's say you go into like an Apollo or Zoom Info, the databases out there, or so they have certain industry classifications. So let's say if you're searching for software companies, you'll classify as like software development. But what you notice is that in that list that you scrape with people with companies classified as software development, you're going to get like cybersecurity companies, you're going to get database companies, you're going to get MSPs, and not all of them are going to be SaaS companies. So you're actually missing around 20 to 30% of your total addressable market, and you're only going to get like 40 to 50% of the lead list are going to be the people that you actually want to speak to, and you might be wasting a ton of time doing outreach to people that might never get you revenue in the door. And Clay essentially removes that completely. So you guys might have been automatically manually building out lead lists where you're going into each website, figuring out whether this is an IT company, is this a cleaning company, and then checking that. If you're a sales rep, you might be doing that when you're prospecting. But Clay literally has an AI agent that goes into each website and eliminates that 5 to 10 minutes that it takes you to visit a website and figure out whether it's the right company that you want to reach out to or not. And I'm going to be walking through that whole flow over here. And essentially, the result of you using the traditional lead list scraping and manual scraping is just a bunch of wasted credits, poor reply rates, and your sales reps, or you, if you're building something that's going to market, just in data entry hell, doing a lot of redundant stuff in terms of, with all the automations and all the LLMs out there, like who doesn't want to automate stuff? So going into the Clay solution, what it essentially does is it can literally, the 5 to 10 minutes of manual research it takes to build a list of, let's say, 500 accounts that you want to go after, you can run 10,000 rows in 15 minutes and figure out whether or not it's the right company that you want to reach out to. And the way we do that is Claygent. I'll get more into that. And another thing that Clay helps you with is finding someone's work email. So if you're doing outreach to a hiring manager for your job, or if you're trying to sell someone something, you need their work email. And Clay has some access to something called a waterfall enrichment, which allows you to go over like 5 to 10 different providers. There's a bunch of providers in the platform, but specifically for email, there's around 5 to 10, which allows you to basically search each provider and find email coverage. So if you were just using one provider, you're going to miss out around 20 to 40% of your target market if you're running an email motion. So Clay goes on to each data provider and checks if the email is valid and it exists. And if it doesn't match it for one of them, it's going to go on to the next one, then the next one, then the next one. So you have a whole waterfall. And no, there's no data tool out there that gives you coverage like that, just because of all the partnerships that Clay has. And then, as I mentioned, Claygent, so that's going to be your best friend when you're lead list building. It essentially allows you to go in, it's your personal AI agent that goes in and scrapes and finds out whether this is the right company, whether the company has specific amount of information that you want, any public news about a company, whether they had recent funding or a signal that you might be looking for. And this essentially just frees you and your reps time for focusing on revenue generating activities. So I want you guys to just be on the phones, just answering people, not automating that the data scraping. I mean, not manually building out these lead lists. I want you to be just focused purely on revenue generating activities. And this whole flow will show you how you can do that, where you're generally just sending out automated cold emails, but you have manual touch points to only the accounts, the big accounts that you want to reach out to and do account-based marketing approaches with, usually enterprise accounts. So don't expect to just run an automated playbook and land McDonald's as a client. It takes a lot of work to do that. But essentially the way it works is what you want to do is once you go into Clay, you want to go into find companies. It's on the top tab over there. And once you do find companies, you might notice it has like an industry filter. You have like software development, landscaping, IT services, like all the different companies, industries around the world. But you want to leave that alone, leave that blank. What you want to do is just use location. So whoever your ICP is, your ideal customer profile, you just want to put in locations for the country, state, city, the company size that you want to go after. And what you want to do is, the thing you want to focus on is the description of the keywords. So depending on your LLM of choice, like ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, you want to go into that and just ask it something like, I'm looking for cleaning companies. I want you to give me all the keywords that a cleaning company would have in their company description. And then once you get all those keywords, you just want to put that all over here. So commercial cleaning, office cleaning, facility cleaning, building maintenance. So any word that can be associated with the company having it in the company description. And you paste it into there. And then you want to go as broad as possible. So even if a keyword is slightly, you might think that this might relate to another industry, you still want to go as broad as possible when you're building out the list first, as we just want to get a broad map of all the companies in your total addressable market. So once you've done that, what you'll then do is you'll get a list of companies. You can import them into a table. And they'll give you a list of like 10,000 companies, 5,000 companies. You can limit it as well in the Clay table. But the next thing you're going to do is Claygent. So it's basically ChatGPT inside Clay. But you don't want to, something that can actually lose you a ton of Clay credits is if you run Claygent and if you run 1 credit per row that you run, that's going to cost you, depending on the plan you're on, like around like 15 to 50 cents. What you can do is you want to use GPT-4o Mini and you want to add your API key on there. So you can run 10,000 rows for like 80%, 80% less expensive just because you're using your API key. So it's like pennies. It's like 0.005 to run like 15 rows compared to you'd run 5 cents with 1 row on Clay if you use the Clay credits. So you want to put in your API key in there and add your OpenAI account. And then just like you would prompt ChatGPT, you want to prompt it with what you're looking for. So I want you to identify whether is this a commercial cleaning company. I want you to identify if this is a managed service provider, if this is an IT company. And you want to give it the variable of the domain so it can go and scrape that. So it's going to be your personal AI agent. It's going to go and scrape the domain and find out whether or not it is that type of company. And Clay actually has something that can help you with prompting. So if you're not sure about how to prompt it or you're not really sure about how to describe the type of company you're looking for, Clay can assist you. So all you need to do is just write, like, identify all the software companies in this list using the domain. You'll just press generate prompt over here when in Clay, and it'll make the whole prompt for you. So all the keywords, it'll give it examples, because prompting is another skill, but Clay has AI-generated workflows to genuinely help you build that strong prompt. And once you've built that prompt, the first thing that you want to do is, even if you're not using Clay credits, it still costs money using your API key. So you want to run 10 rows first, and you just want to manually go in and check whether or not it's telling you the truth. So sometimes, as you know, AI hallucinates a lot. So as long as your prompt is somewhat right, you're going to get 70 to 60% accuracy in the first go. But you want to genuinely go and check the companies manually, the first 10 that you do, just to get a sample size, whether or not they actually match your target market. And then once you've done that, you want to iterate until it's about 60 to 80% accurate. Hallucination is going to be normal. Like, you can never build a perfect lead list unless you manually craft each one. It's like a specific list of accounts over like 100 to 500. But if you're going over to like thousands of leads, I wouldn't panic if there's 1 or 2 leads that don't really fit your target market or have like a somewhat of an adjacent offering that you might not want to sell into. But that's just the inevitability of having to scrape that many leads at scale. But if anyone has any, yeah, you have a question?
That's going to be a random question, but both in Con and Gen demo and new demo, I'm noticing that the context, you're putting it in the prompt field rather than putting it in the system prompt field. can I ask why that is instead of having like, you are an AI-powered scraper. Why isn't that in the system prompt?
So when you're using ClayGent, it's just a prompt. But so there's two scrapers on Clay. So one is just the GPT, which is data that you already have in the table that you play around with. So a company description, a company website. But with ClayGent, it's just one prompt. So
There's
you
no
don't have
system prompt field?
there's no system prompt field with ClayGent.
There is.
Yeah, if I can expand. So you'll notice in the use case, which is at the top in the right-hand picture, it says web research Claygent.
Yeah.
That's a drop-down menu. There's 3 options.
Right.
One of them is
Content.
Yeah, it's like create or
Yeah.
update
so
content.
in the copywriter portion, there's a system prompt. And I actually
Right.
think in the Claygent there's a system prompt as well. But when I've been running tables, I found that you could do it both. So if you put it in the system prompt and you put like 1 or 2 sentences in the context, it performs better.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. There's
Yeah.
nothing, I just
Yeah.
wanted to know if the system prompt was.
There is a
because I
system
would've-
prompt.
I would've-
The other thing too is like, if your prompt is too big, because like my company, we just had a mini project to like see if caching is possible, but because now that Clay is integrated with Gemini, so you can
Yeah.
use but it
No?
doesn't work.
Okay.
Like, okay, so
Okay.
you need more dev time to leverage the inherent caching for Gemini. Like,
Okay.
it doesn't just automatically, like between Clay and a Gemini connection,
Right,
do
right.
it automatically.
Okay, but it would for other models, right?
We haven't tested it with other models.
Okay.
But yeah, because we're trying to, like, we also use our own API key, right? All of the token costs that you see here, once it gets pushed through, it just gets passed
Yeah,
through,
yeah.
right? So if you have a massive prompt, like, because we need a complex task to be done, like, sometimes Clay is actually cheaper, because Clay will just say, like, when you pick your model, it'll say, like, 2.5 Clay credits, and I could write the biggest prompt in the world, and it doesn't charge you more.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay, so sometimes, like, in some cases, we found that using Clay credits is slightly cheaper. The other advantage that we found, and this is also purely anecdotal, so it's not qualitative, well, not quantitative, it's qualitative. Throttle speed in Clay is better than your own API key. So how many calls you can make? Because like the, I forgot what it's called, but like if I have.
Yeah, there's tier-based tokens, and
Yeah.
so
Thank you. Yeah. So if you had like, if you wanted to run 50,000 rows, we would run it with the Clay credit card. Like we would just solve the cost of that because the API key times out. And we've even tried like upgrading the subscription to some API keys, but it's because Clay is such a buying power for the LLM models.
Yeah.
They have a better rate.
Better off going through them. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just
But
wanted,
that's like test it yourself, because this
Yeah,
is
yeah.
just an odd case.
Interesting.
just wanted to augment that information to what she just said, because she asserted right, using a Claygent is relatively cheaper than making system prompts. So, as it says in the name there, it's an agent. So, Claygent, this is more on the LLM side and the eval side, there are other people who have used similar prompts. So if your prompt there's a history of your prompt with similar results, it doesn't make an LLM call. It goes internally to their database to fetch that result. So so she's right from a scalability point of view. It's not making an OpenAI LLM call. That's hence an agent, Claygent, as compared to an LLM call.
Right. Okay. Oh, thank you.
Okay. Question answered?
you guys want to come and co-host the presentation as well? But yeah, the next
Technical side.
But the
Yeah.
next part of the process is finding the people. So once you've built the company list, you've qualified the list with ClayGent. What you want to do is you want to find the decision makers. You want to find the people that you want to reach at these companies that you've qualified for already with ClayGent. And the way you do that is within the same workbook. So you have that same workbook within Clay. You can add a new table. And what you can do is find people function. And in that, you can go in and just map out all the job titles. We typically, when we're going after decision makers, what you want to do is you don't want to use job functions. Sometimes there'll be like sales leaders that somehow go into engineering and growth, or sometimes it really messes up the departments you're reaching out to. So you just want to put in keywords. So like if you're looking for like warehouse managers, just put warehouse in there. Or if you're looking for sales leaders, put like sales, growth, go to market, anyone you're targeting. And then you want to go into seniority and then put in anywhere from manager to owner, depending on who you're going after. That's typically what we go when we're building out lead lists for B2B companies that go after decision makers. And apart from that, it's pretty simple. What you can do is just like the company function, what you want to do is put in the location for whichever company you want to go after in terms of North America, the US, Canada, Europe. And something that we noticed, this is a pro tip over here, is there's a filter within this, is you can filter for someone that recently got hired at a new role, like a sales leader. And usually it's a good trigger for you to go and pitch your solution. They usually come into a new company, they're looking to evaluate new vendors, and they usually are like getting rid of a ton of vendors as well, and usually making instant impact. And for our customers, we've run that play before, and just going after recently hired decision makers is a good trigger to go after for any product that you might be pitching. Yeah, go ahead.
Sounds like whenever there's a big change, like an opportunity in the company, like they got funding or they have new change in management,
Yeah.
like someone who has to prove something or they have an ad budget. So is there a way to kind of figure out a way, like a prompt that would like analyze all the scenarios, like
Yep.
talk with them and then
Yep. So there's Clay has the native integration on that for signals. So you can track like a bunch of companies. So let's say you have like 100 companies. You want to understand about anything about their like public news, any triggers, anything about recent funding, new launches, product lines. So what you can do is you can build a flow with the signal in Clay to automatically pull anything about their company news and then push that into like Slack, your CRM, into a Google Sheet, wherever you want the information to be fed into. But you can do that natively, and then you can build out custom signals as well. And Ali will go into one of the signals over there in his presentation about like website visitors. So if anyone visits your website, you can automatically just go and outreach to them and pitch your solution to them. But yeah, signals is one of the main things with Clay. But one caveat is that everyone thinks that signals are the key to you driving a ton of deal flow, but it ultimately depends on your offer and the demand for it and your decision makers who you're going after. But a signal is not going to mean like automatic revenue with a company. There's a caveat to that with your offering and how that aligns as well with the message you're sending to your target audience.
not as cold as a
Exactly. They do. You're gonna get a positive sentiment in terms of people responding, but you want to tie into the relevance with what you're offering. Because if you just mention that, like, "Hey, saw you got recent funding, give me some money," like, no, nobody's gonna reach out to you. And like the way you want to frame it is, let's say a sales leader comes on board, and you notice that you can track what tech stack they might be using. If they're using HubSpot or Salesforce, you can mention that if you have a competing CRM on how you can increase their sales reps efficiency based on like them getting new hardly in the company. So you want to tie it into that. So a lot of people think about personalization, but you don't want to do personalization just for the sake of personalization, mentioning that you went to the same university or something, especially when you're selling a product. It's a good relevance point if you're trying to build a connection to maybe get a job somewhere. But when you're selling B2B, you really need to tie the relevance of the signal into the offer that you're selling to them. Exactly. Perfect. And yeah, so the waterfall enrichment, this is how it works. So once you have the people in the table, the decision makers you want to go after, you just do add a work email, and then you can get a full waterfall of it checking each and every provider to see who has the email and who doesn't. And one thing that we do is if you have providers already, you can use API keys here as well. Like we're partnered with Prospeo, and then we have Lead Magic, and then like ICPs. So sometimes running the whole waterfall is a bit, I'd say, counterintuitive, just because a lot of these, their backends work in the same way. They do like email permutations, and it doesn't really yield a ton of results. So running like 3 or 4 of these is ideal. You don't need to run the whole flow. It burns a lot of Clay credits as well, so I wouldn't recommend it. And then, yeah, so once you have the lead list, what you can do here, one thing I missed was after you found the email, then you can ChatGPT prompt it to build personalized messages, just like how Jan showed with the LinkedIn connection. For the email, if you want to send anything personalized, you can prompt Clayton to find anything about the company, mention something from their website, find any signals, and then build out a message with ChatGPT. And then you can push it into the email sequencer, which I'll go into over here. So what we use is Instantly.ai, and it's basically a cold email sequencer. I'm not going to go into specifics of how that's used. If you want to know, just come and speak to me. I can tell you how that actually sets up, because there's a whole other world about email deliverability and reaching inboxes and that stuff. But essentially, Clay has a native integration with Instantly. So all the first names, the last names that you mapped in the table, the job titles that you cleaned, the company names, the emails, any personalized lines that you made, you can push that into the email sequencer, the one where you're going to send out the email campaigns from. And once you have that in the email campaigns, you can add your Instantly account, you can add your API key, and then you can build out the message and then have that variable in that message. And it's pretty much one-to-one. Though if you build out a proper Clay playbook, you're sending a one-to-one message rather than a one-to-many message to your whole target market, which would take you like 15 minutes manually, but you can do that to your like 10,000s of people in like a couple months if you have the right systems in place. But you can even, there's a bunch of other tools as well that you can push it to, like Outreach, SalesLoft, Apollo, SmartLead. Clay even has their own inbuilt sequencer. So you can even use Clay to send out the emails. But leads will just automatically flow into your campaigns, and then you can add all the copy there and all the offers and everything on that. But to give you some examples of like lists that we've built with Clay that have led to deal flow, like genuine lists that we've built that have helped companies drive more pipeline, is we worked with an elevator consulting company. Yeah, even I didn't know that type of company exists. Like they just came inbound to us. But what we did for them was we identified like a website where we knew buildings getting fines for elevators for like not having the right compliance checks in place. And then what we did was that we matched it to the company that was dealing with that building over there in the area with Clay, and then found decision makers, and then reached out mentioning the fine, and then mentioning how like we have consulting on like how we can help you reduce costs for fines like that. And another example was we worked with a warehouse robotics company that unloads containers. But the only thing with the robot was that although it did reduce the labor costs, it can only like carry a certain amount of weight. So what we did with Claygent was that we went on the website and we found out what type of freight they handle. Like, do they handle like food to like furniture? And if it's anything like above 60 pounds, we automatically disqualify it and we don't even outreach to them. So Claygent scraped that website, and then we mentioned the items as well in the email, like specifically. We mentioned like, hey, we have this robot that unloads this. We saw on your website that you have item 1 and item 2. We can help you unload that automatically instead of labor, and we can reduce your costs. So you can specifically tie it into the relevance of your offer when you have specific personalization points and data points that you've captured. And then one more was we worked with a workplace solutions company that could basically reduce office costs by like 80%. They had a tool on like to figure out on attendance and who's going to come into the office or who's not. And we wanted to find out anyone that had like a hybrid or remote formation. So we scraped job postings to find out people hiring for remote or hybrid roles. And we found any public news, anyone talking about like Amazon, like with the new news about them going in person, and we just removed them from the lead list. So we tracked public news as well to find details about who is hybrid and who is remote, so we can reach out to them. And then one thing we always stand by is that the list builds the message. There's no copy or messaging that can save a bad list. So if you're reaching the wrong people, like there's nothing that you can say that's going to help you land more deals. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, yeah, you mentioned the list builds a message and wrong people. But elevator consulting company, taking that example, let's say when it comes to the building, it's a large real estate company that has many, many buildings. And even if you search the word building superintendent, if they have 100 buildings in their portfolio, 50 buildings, they would have like 50 superintendents. How do you narrow down to the one? So
100%. It's a black box. You're right, and that's the inevitability of you reaching out to enterprise. You never know who the decision maker is. So a flow that we like to do is we like to go in with like the referral approach. We're like, hey, we're not even sure. Like, I'm not sure if you're the right person to reach to about this or someone else. And then you can even mention like their employee's name enriched with Clay in the email, like automatically mention that like, hey, I'm not sure if should I speak to you or John, but this is what we do. You'd be interested in seeing how it works, but essentially we want to go in with a referral approach, and we usually go to the right point of contact. But in the bigger firms, it is a black box. Like usually it's in the smaller firms, you're able to find out who's the one point of contact that you want to go after, but there is a black box there. But that's why you just need to run more volume. But at the same time, you don't want to spam people. But if you get 2 touch points in per quarter to every decision maker, you can pretty much cover your entire target market and generally generate predictable deal flow. And yeah, so quick recap. So the way it works is you find companies in Clay, go broad with as many keywords as possible for the specific industry you're looking for, and segment it out, go industry by industry. Don't try and build one list with a bunch of different industries, unless you want to specifically go after all of them in just one campaign. Segmenting it out ideally is better because just with the messaging and the way you want to reach them. And then you want to qualify with AI the company list, and then you find the decision makers, then you waterfall the email, and then you push it to the email sequencer to automatically send cold emails. And yeah, any questions? And one more thing, if anyone is interested in learning like a Clay setup that they're currently building, or just want a free consultation, want me to build you a free Clay table for your ICP or anything you're thinking about, or review your outbound workflow, happy to give you a free 15-minute consultation as well. And yeah, any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned earlier strategically that maybe for ABM accounts, you want a more of a like glove approach, but
Yeah.
have you ever used, have you ever used a clay table similar to what you described for some of those three examples you had? For ABM, like find above the line, below the line personas and multi-thread them? Seems like you could build that out in clay if you wanted.
You could, yeah. Multi-threading does work, and especially at enterprise, at ABM, we've seen instances where it has worked. The thing that we like to do with ABM and Clay is go after those intent. Just it's the easiest way to get in the door. Going completely cold to the bigger companies when you have an ABM-based approach is pretty hard. So ideally, have those signals in place to track those news about the companies or any triggers, and then reach out to them at the right time once you have everything feeding into where your CRM or your Slack or wherever you guys feed information into.
But like signals, we're talking about signals that we can build, like that. Signal might be like any.
Yeah.
Jan,
Does it make, have you?
you and your content creation addiction.
We should have to get the UCRO at my company, and that's my signal, that's my persona right now. Why don't I reach out to his boss too with a different messaging, and different angle? Is that something that you like done in clay, or you strictly use it?
Yeah, no, we do that. It's just about like at that point, it would be better for you to just do it manually. Like, there's no point in building it out in Clay if you're going after like a specific set of like 50 accounts. But if you're going after like specific set of 1,000 accounts, then we do segment it by persona. So depending on the persona and depending on how the message changes, but it always ties into we always tie the offer into either saving time, reducing costs, or making more money. If the offer doesn't tie into that, it's hard to sell into B2B, especially with cold traffic.
Yeah, I guess I was, I'll yield to the next question. I guess I was just imagining if there was a way to hack, because you said, again, at that point, you're better off doing it manually.
Yeah.
I think there's gotta be a way to hack so that you can build buying committees, not just personas, and then, in Clay, and then, outreach to buying. So for one account, it might be a group of 5, and for another account, it might be just one guy or whatever.
Fair. Yeah, I think it's just about like if you know those trends, if you know the industry, then you know who's the typical decision maker, or this company of this size, this is the decision maker. Then if you know those trends, you can build out that clay table. But otherwise, it's just a black box if you don't know much about the industry. Because if it's a big company and a smaller company, like you have no idea about who's going to be the right decision maker.
By the way, I'm fascinated about the whole buying committee thing. Like, if you can figure that out. The ABM approach, can you educate us? Like, what do you guys mean by the ABM approach?
It's like basically going multi-channel. It's typically for enterprise accounts, Fortune 500s that you're trying to land. So instead of just doing email, you do multi-channel. So you do a sequence, like a 10-step sequence, going like cold calling them, LinkedIn, direct mail, trade show event. So you'd go every channel possible just to get in the door with like a big account. ABM is only worth it for bigger deal sizes. And yeah, it wouldn't be worth looking into if you have a TAM above total addressable market over like 30,000 companies. But if you have a bigger deal size and a TAM below 10,000 companies, like it's something worth looking into.
How long have you been doing this?
Like a few years. I just graduated university like 7 months ago.
What advice would you have for a technical founder who's looking to start selling his product and get into?
Yeah, I would say start cold outreach as fast as possible. Referrals or inbound will never tell you the truth about your product. And you don't want to build something and waste a ton of time and then realize that it has no traction to cold outreach, because that's how you predictably scale. It's really hard to scale with referrals or inbound unless you're like a viral celebrity with a ton of traffic already. So you need to make sure that you do cold outreach just to get the hard truth about whether or not there is demand for your offer or not. And cold email sequencing is the way to do that.
I know I wasn't asked that question, but I would also suggest that you do that before you even soft launch your product. You can just say, hey, we think that we have just a messaging window here to your ICP and your target persona. We're building something right now. It's not ready, but we're inviting select people like you to see if we're on the right track. So you don't have to wait until you spend 6 to 8, 12 months in development. It's shorter now, like 3 to 6 months with Cursor or something. But do what he said, but do it as early as possible. Like,
Fair.
not just as soon as you launch and you have a product. You don't even have to have a
No, 100%. Make a wait list. Just do market research interviews. Just do like product expert interviews. Pay for people's time that are actually worth speaking to.
Cold
And
early
yeah,
adopters are the best feedback source.
Yes,
yeah, 100%.
brutally honest.
Yeah, completely cold,
Yeah.
completely, like,
Yeah.
you don't even have a product to give them.
You can demo the rinky-dink version of your.
You got a question, brother? You got a question?
So basically, the reason you're saying that is because it's a lot easier for people to like a tweet or something saying that they might want to buy it maybe in the future. Like it's not like a really high signal that there is demand for the product if it's inbound and things like that.
Yeah, so it's just hard to get enough traffic. It takes a while to get organic traffic for you to scale something. So, like, ideally, if you want to sell something, unless you have a base already, you have a personal brand you've built up. It's ideally you want to do cold outreach is the only way to predictably get customers in the door as fast as possible and to validate demand.
So validating the demand, you mean like because for someone to actually take a call with you and spend their actual time, it's a lot higher signals basically.
Exactly. Then a like on LinkedIn or Twitter. Yeah.
That's cool. That's good.
Yeah.
If you basically, if you get like a positive response rate, I won't put a number on it, but like a decent percentage of response rate of people are saying, yeah, I'll show up for 15 minutes. Yeah.
Exactly.
Then you've proven what I would call message market fit or offer market fit. And then if those people are showing up to your demo and they're like, yeah, I put me on the wait list, I'm interested in this, then you're starting to lean towards product market fit.
Right.
But you don't need to wait till like, all right, I have a product that people can sign up for and actually use before you start. I would say that's a good way to like, you get really disappointed actually.
Yeah.
Because you want to make sure that you're building like
I've been there.
the right. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. No, he's right. Listen to him. Yeah. All right. Thank you, guys.